political primaries. Wins in 8 states boost Democrats' hope for a blue wave in the November midterm elections. Revamping the VA. President Trump signs a new law aimed at helping retired military. We're at the White House. Family Matters. Tennessee lawmaker Diane Black on what the role the deterioration of the family has in school shootings. And a gift that keeps on giving, why Pope Francis says the key to Christian unity comes from the Holy Spirit. On EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, June 6th, 2018. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Democratic women are winners, and supporting President Trump matters in Alabama. Republicans and Democrats faced the biggest primary of the 2018 election last night, fighting to shape the political battlefield for the fall. Primaries took place in 8 states, including California, where Republicans put a pro-life businessman on the general election ballot. Capitol Hill correspondent Jason Calvi has more. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. President Trump endorsed John Cox, who's running to be the governor of the Golden State. The state's primary places all of the candidates, Republican and Democrat, on the same ballot. The two winners face off this fall. The California Pro-Life Council endorsed Republican John Cox, a Catholic businessman.
It wasn't Donald Trump who made California the highest tax state in the country. It was Gavin Newsom and the Democrats.
As mayor of San Francisco, he allowed same-sex couples to apply for marriage licenses in 2004. Newsom says he represents California,
a state where we don't obstruct justice, we demand justice for everybody. Where we don't regulate a woman's body more than we regulate assault weapons out on our streets.
California isn't the only state in the spotlight. In Alabama, 4-term Republican Martha Roby didn't get enough votes to win outright and now heads to a primary runoff. During the 2016 election, she withdrew her endorsement of Donald Trump after the release of a video where Trump bragged about touching women.
I've been running on my conservative record, and I'm going to continue to do that, of fighting for Alabama's military, our veterans, for our farmers, for border security, and the fight for the unborn.
In South Dakota, Representative Kristi Noem won the GOP primary. She's the state's first woman nominee for governor.
I'm not going to raise your taxes.
And in New Mexico, Democrat Deborah Haaland could become the first Native American woman in Congress.
A victory for women. A victory for Indian country.
Haaland also criticizes Republicans for defunding Planned Parenthood. Just one of the issues at play as Democrats try to retake the House. Now, this fall, they need to pick up 23 GOP seats. Lauren?
What do last night's results say about their chances to do that?
California offers Democrats the most chances to pick up vulnerable GOP seats. So good news for Democrats last night. They weren't locked out of any of California's congressional races. For Republicans, the fact they actually have someone running as governor is a good sign, possibly leading to a turnout boost for their congressional races.
Correspondent Jason Calvi. Thank you, Jason. No summer recess for senators. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has canceled their August vacation. He says there's plenty of work to be done.
The president's made it quite clear he doesn't intend to sign another omnibus. And in order to prevent that, obviously we should do our work, which is to pass individual appropriation bills.
The election year move may help lawmakers confirm more of President Trump's nominees, and it also might keep vulnerable Democratic senators off the campaign trail. The White House communications aide, criticized for making fun of Senator John McCain's failing health, is out of a job. In May, Kelly Sadler said McCain's opposition to the president's CIA director nominee did not matter because the Arizona Republican was dying. McCain is currently battling brain cancer. President Trump signs a bill expanding private care for veterans as an alternative to the troubled VA health system. Some vets say the new law is sorely needed, but debate remains over how to pay for it. White House correspondent Mark Irons reports. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. The VA Mission Act will cost $51 billion. The bipartisan measure aims to improve wait times and care for millions of veterans. At the signing, President Trump said it's all about giving vets choices.
These are sweeping, historic changes. There's never been anything like this in the history of the VA. Never been anything close. And we will not rest until the job is fully done.
If vets endure long wait times or receive treatment they did not expect, the new law would allow them to seek private doctors. It builds on a previous 2014 law passed in response to a scandal at the Phoenix VA Medical Center where some veterans died while waiting months to have an appointment. Michael Verardo suffered a traumatic brain injury during the war in Afghanistan and has relied on VA care. His wife Sarah tells me today the bill signing is historic.
This bill is great because it really opens up access to choice, and that's choice within the VA system or outside of it, so real choice for America's veterans, and also, very importantly, it expands caregiver support.
Expanding caregiver support means this law will cover more vets, those who served before and after September 11th, not just those injured in the line of duty since 2001. A bipartisan group of senators wants to pay for this law by adding new funds to cover the VA private care program, but the White House has been working to block that plan. The Trump administration prefers to cut spending elsewhere. Lauren?
Mark, the president has nominated acting Veteran Affairs Secretary Robert Wilkie to lead the department. What can we expect during his confirmation process?
Robert Wilkie has an extensive career in government, including major roles at the Department of Defense. Democrats on Capitol Hill say they will question Wilkie on whether he plans to privatize the VA health system. There are lawmakers on both sides of the aisle opposed to that idea. Lauren?
White House correspondent Mark Irons, thank you. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will meet tomorrow with President Trump. On the docket, Japan's concerns about the upcoming U.S.-North Korea summit, including whether the country would be in danger of missiles that don't threaten the United States. Another topic at the White House will be the fate of Japanese people abducted by North Korea in the 1970s and 80s. Mexico strikes back. It is imposing tariffs on products imported from the U.S., including pork, apples, and bourbon. It's in response to the Trump administration's duties on steel and aluminum. It comes as the U.S. and Mexico renegotiate NAFTA, the North American Trade Agreement. Venezuela could soon be out as a member of one of the top international decision-making bodies. The Organization of American States is condemning Venezuela's president for the country's ongoing diplomatic and economic crisis. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby has reaction from the State Department. Good evening, Wyatt.
Good evening, Lauren. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is applauding the Organization of American States. The group accuses President Nicolas Maduro's government of corruption. It sparked a narrow vote yesterday.
México.
A favor.
Brasil.
Sí.
Canadá.
In favor.
And with that, the Organization of American States takes the first step towards suspending Venezuela, which would ban the country from participating in the 35-member group made up of North, Central, and South American countries. The resolution was adopted one day after Vice President Mike Pence made his case to the organization.
I call on the community of free nations from across this new world to expel the Maduro dictatorship from the Organization of American States. The OAS must stand for freedom.
The resolution calls on member states to help in restoring democratic order in Venezuela. It also declares Nicolas Maduro's presidential election victory in May illegitimate. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says they need to take it one step further.
In addition to suspension, I call on fellow member states to apply additional pressure on the Maduro regime.
Under Maduro's socialist government, the majority Catholic country has experienced extreme shortages in medicine and food, leading to a humanitarian disaster. Caritas International, a Catholic aid group, estimates 4 million Venezuelans have fled the country, many into neighboring Colombia. In May, Cardinal Jorge Orosa of Caracas was quoted as saying, "Here in the Archdiocese of Caracas, we have already lost 4 of our permanent deacons, and there are also many religious congregations that are taking their sisters out of the country because they don't have the resources to feed them or give them medical care."
The Catholic Church in Venezuela has long protested President Maduro's crackdown of political opponents. The cardinal says last year more than 100 people were killed by law enforcement trying to stop various protests. He says it's vital Catholics pray for the country and for a peaceful solution. Lauren?
Wyatt, what is Venezuela saying about this vote, and are they talking to the U.S.?
Lauren, the Maduro regime is accusing the U.S. of organizing a coup against them, and the foreign minister, specifically from Venezuela, is blaming the humanitarian crisis on Washington in particular. They say for over 2 decades, the U.S. has pushed sanctions on their country, and other countries have simply followed suit. Lauren?
Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby reporting from the State Department. Thank you, Wyatt. Drone footage shot yesterday shows the destruction left by a volcano eruption in Guatemala. The town of El Rodeo appears in a lifeless state, with houses and trees covered in ash. At least 70 people have died. Catholic Relief Services is on the ground, collecting donations and asking for prayers. A cabinet minister says the British government will not change abortion laws in Northern Ireland, and instead will leave it to the people there to decide. The country is the only part of the UK where abortion is illegal in all but exceptional cases. The Vatican is denying it is protecting the founder of a Catholic community in Peru who is accused of sexual and psychological abuse against minors. An independent investigation concluded Luis Figari is a paranoid narcissist, obsessed with sex and watching his underlings endure pain and humiliation. The Vatican has ordered him to stay away from the community. He has been living in relative seclusion in Rome for years. Vatican correspondent Juliette Lindley joins us from Rome. Juliette, if he was accused years ago, why is the Vatican writing this letter now?
Lauren, Luis Figari launched a second appeal against a 2017 Vatican decision prohibiting him from living with the society that he founded. And at the end of January, the Vatican rejected his first appeal, and now the Vatican is saying in a letter that Figari has never been hidden, sheltered, or protected in any way by the Holy See. Figari moved to Rome in 2015 from his native Peru after being accused, but Peruvian prosecutors are seeking him. The Vatican says it is not preventing him from responding to the accusations that he faces in Peru.
So prosecutors want him back in Peru, is what it seems like. Give us a little background on this community. It was a scandal at the time this announcement was made.
Lauren, the Sodalites are a religious movement founded back in 1971 by Figari in Peru, and it received pontifical recognition in 1997. It operates as a community in the United States, in Italy, and in 7 Latin American countries. Now, the group in 2010 was shaken when Figari stepped down as Secretary General after allegations of abuse surfaced in Peru. In full disclosure, let me point out that Catholic News Agency's Executive Director, Alejandro Bermudez, is a member of the community. CNA is owned by EWTN.
What exactly was Figari accused of? Have we heard from him personally?
Well, a team of independent investigators commissioned by the movement itself in 2017 accused Figari of sexually assaulting at least 1 child, of manipulating and sexually abusing and harming several other young people, and physically or psychologically abusing dozens of others. Now, that same year, the Vatican banned him from living with the community. Figari has not spoken out, Lauren, but in 2016, the group acknowledged the abuse and asked victims for forgiveness.
And this is all part of the Pope's plan to focus on the sexual abuse crisis that is happening. Thank you so much, Juliette Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent.
Thank you, Lauren.
For the first time, women in Saudi Arabia are allowed to have driver's licenses. The move comes as the country is preparing to lift its ban later this month on female drivers. The first recipients are 10 women who already had permits from other countries. They took a brief test before being issued those licenses. Coming up, 50 years since Robert F. Kennedy was brutally removed from the national stage. And a pro-life lawmaker and her advice for ending school shootings.
This land is your land. This land is mine.
Country singer Kenny Chesney crooned today, part of the 50th anniversary ceremony of the death of Robert F. Kennedy. The ceremony was at Arlington Cemetery. Kennedy was running for president, had won the California primary in 1968 when he was killed. He was 42 years old. Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos tells a Senate committee the Federal Commission on School Safety, which she chairs, will not examine the role of guns in school violence.
So you're studying gun violence but not considering the role of guns?
We're actually studying school safety and how we can ensure our students are safe at school.
President Trump established the commission after this shooting in Parkland, Florida, that killed 17 people. The tragedy sparked a national debate about how to prevent school shootings. Joining me now is Representative Diane Black, Republican from Tennessee. Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you.
Several mainstream media outlets seem to sensationalize your comments last week about the root cause of gun violence being pornography. What were you intending to say? What did the media do?
Well, there's no doubt that the media is always going to find a way to twist and turn your words, especially when you're conservative. But what I was trying to say, and what I did say before they just cut a piece out, is that we see the families, breakdown in the families. And adolescents need that kind of structure. They need that kind of guidance that families give them. And when they don't have that, they will look for something else, such as the violent videos or the violent movies, and a part of that is pornography.
Pornography. So what you're saying is that pornography isn't the root cause of people shooting, but it does play a role in their mental health. Let's talk about mental health, because that is what most people do not want to address. There is such a stigma around mental health. What specific plan do you think Congress could enact to make it less of a stigma?
Well, I think that we have to acknowledge that mental health is just like any other disease, and that you have to treat that disease. And there shouldn't be a stigma with it, no more than there is when you have diabetes or heart disease. And we need to address that and acknowledge it in a way where we're addressing it, paying for it, and making sure that people are aware. I actually believe that we ought to have teachers and parents and counselors, even students, that when they see something, say something. When they see a change in a young person's behavior, because if you look at all of these terrible incidents that happen, all of
there
these
were
young,
signs,
there
right?
were signs along the way where students would have said, I saw X getting more introverted,
and moody,
and not being a part of, not sitting with us at the lunch table, wearing dark colors, wearing a trench coat in warm weather. These are all signs that there's something going on. And when they don't have the kind of guidance that we get when we have intact families, then they do seek other ways. And there are lots of studies out there that show that these violent movies and pornography cause depression and cause more isolation.
What about Congress? Is there a way to legislate this away?
I think it's difficult to just say there's a magic wand with one bill that you can pass. I think we have to do things along the way to make sure that we're helping families to stay in touch, to educate parents to be sure that they're there for their children, giving them more education about what adolescents go through. And then again, being aware that when they see their young person going in a direction that is not normal for them, that they take action on that right when they see it.
Republican Congressman Diane Black, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
Up next, is government aid by the Trump administration reaching persecuted Christians in Iraq? We have the answer. And the role of the Holy Spirit in everyday life. Iraq's parliament has voted in favor of a manual ballot recount. It comes after allegations of widespread fraud in the country's recently held parliamentary elections. This could prolong the process of forming a new government. Meanwhile, persecuted Christians in the Nineveh Plain in Iraq say they are still waiting for promised funds from the United States to help them rebuild. Vice President Pence announced a little more than 7 months ago that U.S. aid was coming. Joining me now is Nina Shea, Director of the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute. Welcome back to the program.
Great to be with you, Lauren.
This has always been an issue. When I was in Iraq, I talked to Archbishop Warda, who said, we're just not getting any money and that the UN was at fault. So the U.S. then said, we are going to get you the money. It's not going to be through the UN.
Right.
So why isn't the money getting there?
Directly, yes. Well, this was on track until the final stage. And then the entrenched bureaucracy in the U.S. AID mission in Baghdad outmaneuvered
the Trump administration.
The Trump administration, and yes, and really flouted the vice president's promise and policy. It wasn't just a promise; it was a policy of this administration.
So what happened? This is a little bit of a tough story to follow. So the Trump administration says we're going to give Christians in Iraq aid.
They designated $35 million for that purpose last fall.
All right. So someone at USAID in Baghdad, in Iraq, said, we're going to take that money, and instead of giving it directly to Christians, which was the issue, we are going to give it to...
Someone in Baghdad appointed an anonymous panel, we don't even know who they are, who are career bureaucrats in the agency of USAID. Okay. And they decided in May that actually, after all this time, after these groups had gone to Baghdad, had conferred about it with the political heads, after 2 members of the vice president's office went to Baghdad for that conference, in May 16th, Archbishop Warda and the other local communities, the other local minorities that had faced and survived genocide by ISIS, got rejection letters from USAID. It was a shock to everyone, including political appointees within USAID, and including the vice president, frankly.
What's next? The president pledged America would provide support directly to those communities. And Archbishop Warda has said that ISIS was a trial that they survived. We went through Batnaya, one of the towns there, completely decimated. So here we can see some pictures of it now. Nobody can live there. So how are those Batnaya Christians going to get that money?
They need jobs, and this money was supposed to be seed money for jobs, to be self-sustaining so they could rebuild their lives. Instead, this money is going to go to the UN, Office of Migration, and to a U.S. federal agency called the U.S. Institute for Peace that is filled with Obama administration former USAID officials.
So you say there needs to be a genocide aid coordinator. Correct. What is that?
Yes, interagency coordinator appointed by the White House that can bird dog this aid to make sure the Christians and the Yazidis, another persecuted group, finally receive it so they can rebuild their lives. They're just hanging on by their fingernails. They're not going to survive in the Middle East, Lauren.
And what we've said is that there have been 1 million Christians in the Middle East, the breadbasket.
Yeah, in Iraq.
In Iraq.
Yes.
Sorry, in Iraq. And now there are 200,000. Nina, thank you so much, Nina Shea, for coming with us, the director of the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute.
Thank you.
A Catholic priest helped secure the release of around 30 anti-government protesters in Nicaragua. They had sought refuge inside San Miguel Church. Riot police waited outside to arrest them. Father Roman teamed with a human rights lawyer to obtain their release. For more on this story, visit CatholicNewsAgency.com. Pope Francis tells the faithful, we are called to be gifts for others.
Qualcuno pensa che la Chiesa ci sono dei padroni.
During his weekly audience with pilgrims and tourists, Francis said sharing the gifts of the Holy Spirit can bring us closer to others. And he warns one thing that gets in the way: gossip. Finally, last night we brought you the show from the Texas-Mexico border, and our goal was to learn firsthand about the roles of both Border Patrol and the Catholic Church. We spent time on the Rio Grande River where 1,700 Laredo Special Sector agents patrol 171 miles of coast. No fence, no wall exists, and only a small fraction is monitored at any given time. We talked to the Bishop of the Cathedral of San Agustin and to Catholic Charities. If you want to see our reports, they can be found online at youtube.com/EWTN. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Let's keep in touch online. Follow me at Lauren Ashburn on Twitter and Lauren Ashburn EWTN on Facebook. Good night and God bless.